Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in Landon Swan. He's a co-founder at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, so we've got a travel show today, and I was looking at some of the moves in the cruise lines and some of the, the booking stocks. We just talked about Expedia. We saw a lot of robust demand. We saw stock prices go parabolic on a few of these names in the different travel sectors, but it seems like the airlines, even though crude oil and fuel prices are down, crude oil was $95 in October. It's down to $72, and so you think margins are going to help, but demand's still there, Landon. What's going on with these airline stocks?
Yeah, they've been a little disappointing. I mean, pretty much flat for the last few months, except for Delta's doing okay. But when you actually rewind a little bit, it's even worse. I mean, United was a $70 to $90 stock before COVID, and after COVID, it's been a $40 to $50 stock. Absolutely crazy how much they just got cut and just have not bounced back. We're actually seeing that travel's pretty resilient. Consumers are, they're tightening up a little bit but when it comes to discretionary, they're prioritizing travel and experiences. So that should be good for airlines. But as you mentioned, a lot of these stocks have been pretty flat. When we look at the competitive landscape, one of the things that we've noticed is that United's done really well with, their happiness, the consumer happiness. They're actually above American right now, right there with Delta. Southwest bringing it up to here, really struggling. Southwest, they've turned around a lot over the last year. But United doing really well, and I think a lot of it has to do with them adding a lot of premium plus capacity and getting better experience for the users. So, if you look at now versus 5 years ago, they've actually 5x'd the number of premium plus seating that they have, and they have plans to increase first class by 80% over the next 3 or 4 years. So they've noted that people are willing to pay for nicer seats, a little bit more room, and they're capitalizing on that. Of course, it takes a while to make that move. The thing I just quoted was 5 years ago and 3 years from now, so it does take it some time, but they're making the smart moves. When we look at total web visits, number of people going to these websites, Delta's leading the pack, but United is second again. So it's a big mover here. United is traditionally catered to business class, but they've actually started getting in with personal travel more. And it's really interesting to see them doing so well, especially when you see how poorly Southwest is doing, again, at the bottom of this chart. So everything that we've got is kind of dogging on Southwest. But, American and United both doing well, trying to catch up to Delta, who's sort of always been a leader for us. But overall, I think that for me, it's all about expectations. Last quarter, they had a good quarter, but they really downplayed how well they could do in Q4. They talked about fuel prices because they were high then, like you mentioned. They've since come down. They talked about having to cut flights to Tel Aviv and some other labor costs and things like that. So they really sort of sandbagged, I guess, these numbers, and the stock sold off on that Q3 report. And now we've got this Q4 report coming up in a little while, and I think that the expectations are pretty low. I mean, the stock's right at or under $40, and it's on the low end of the range. And I think that they're set up for a not so bad type report, right? Where expectations are very low, the stock's low. They downplayed it last quarter, and we could see them maybe mildly surprised to the upside because things aren't going very badly as much as they talked about last quarter.
Yeah, Landon, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned capacity, and capacity's such a volatile aspect of airlines. Whether it should be or not, when they add seats, the stock gets volatile on the downside. Not to mention, it looks like airlines are starting to lose some of their pricing power, Landon. Now, United is going to be one of the main carriers always, right? They're right up there with Delta. American's fallen off slightly. You mentioned Southwest and what they've done. American's also got international, which is so important to them, and that's another commitment that they're making. But, this is a company that when prices are going down and you're adding capacity, that's a tough time to be trading the stock. And Landon, as you know, this doesn't need big changes for these stocks to be volatile. They've always been volatile trades.
Yeah, it's a tough market. I mean, this is this is one of the toughest business there is. They're always, a couple of quarters away from asking for some more government money, and it's tough. It's really interesting to see what goes into things. Generally speaking, capacity. If you didn't know a lot about it, you'd think that was a good thing, increasing that. But you get into it more, and what I think is going to be interesting is seeing how this adding of premium seats is going to come into play, because it's less seats but more expensive per seat. If people are willing to pay it, obviously that's going to be a good thing for the company. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out over the next few years. But on this upcoming quarter, for me, I really think it's an expectations play. You got to watch the stock going into the earnings report over the next couple of weeks and see how those expectations play out. Because I think that they've talked down the quarter four so much, and the stock is down, and yet the data's not bad. I mean, it's really not bad. It's not Delta, but it's far away from being a Southwest. So they're doing okay. And just as you talked about, fuel costs have come down. So, I'm very interested to see how the market reacts to what I think is going to be hey, this wasn't so bad of a quarter. Like, things are looking okay from here. If that kind of report comes out, it could be kind of like Target did last quarter, where, that's kind of what they said. They beat very, very bad expectations and the stock rallied on it. So that's kind of what I'm looking for going into this earnings report.
Yeah, and I was going to hit on that mentions count chart that you guys have, where stock price is lagging maybe that 90-day moving average that you guys have on that. Is that the key when you look at this, and maybe a stock that's overbought or oversold at this point, Landon, where, hey, the TSA data has been pretty robust. We set records just a couple of weeks ago, and this is travel season right now, and they've got exposure to international and business, and that's where the margins are. Is that where maybe your data is saying that UAL can maybe rally from here?
Yeah, this is sort of that divergence play that we always talk about. Now, of course, there's going to be seasonality when it comes to an airline, and this is a 90-day moving average. It's not a one-year moving average, so it'll move up and down with seasonality. However, I'm a big believer in imperfect market information. I mean, the theory is that the market prices everything correctly, but that's not the case. And there's going to be fluctuations, especially when companies are overvalued or undervalued, and a lot of it has to do with just where funds are moving their money, when they're rotating in and out of sectors, and also just expectations. And so, if a company downplays its expectations so much that their stock falls off, then it's going to be, in theory, a lot easier to beat on that next report. So yes, in short, I would say that there is a little bit of a divergence play here, because our data says that United's doing just okay, not bad, not great, but doing pretty well. And the stock says they're doing pretty poorly, and that discrepancy between those two outlooks is going to be interesting to see it play out when all of the information is revealed on the next quarterly report.
Yeah, we get that quarterly report on the 22nd of this month, so we'll get some more clarity on that. All right, great data, great stuff as always, Landon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Landon Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio, breaking down UAL data. I mean, when I picked this name to kind of cover, and then I looked at the stock and I was like, man, I thought travel